What you're about to witness isn't just a courtroom case, it's a farewell that will stay with you forever. When a 67-year-old Vietnam veteran walked into Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom, frail, steady, and fully aware that he had only weeks left to live, no one expected what would follow. He didn't come asking for mercy. He didn't come to complain about pain. He came with one final mission, a dying wish, not for himself, but for others. And when he told Judge Caprio his last request before leaving this world, the entire courtroom fell silent. Even the judge, known for his composure, had to pause. Because sometimes the truest lessons about life come from those standing closest to death. This isn't about fines or violations. This is about service that never ends. About a man who faced his mortality the same way he faced war, with courage, dignity, and devotion to something greater than himself. And what he revealed to Judge Caprio that day, what he chose to do with his final days, will not just move you, it will redefine what you think honor means. Before we begin, take a moment now, hit the subscribe button, because this story isn't just about a courtroom or a dying veteran, it's about kind of strength the world forgets until it's reminded by men like him and judges like Frank Caprio, who prove that real heroes never stop serving, even when their time is almost gone. It's a quiet Thursday morning in late September, and Providence Municipal Court is handling its usual docket with the steady rhythm that defines everyday justice. The autumn light filtering through the courthouse windows carries that bittersweet quality that marks the changing of seasons, and everyone seems focused on resolving their matters and moving forward with their lives. At 10:15 a.m., the courtroom doors open slowly, and through them walks Colonel James "Jim" Brennan, a 67-year-old Vietnam veteran whose appearance immediately tells a story of recent medical struggle. Jim moves carefully with the aid of a walker, each step deliberate and measured. His face shows the gauntness that comes from aggressive cancer treatment. His clothes hang loose on a frame that has clearly lost significant weight, and his eyes carry both the exhaustion of illness and something else, a determination that suggests he's here for reasons that go far beyond a simple court appearance. But Jim isn't alone. Walking beside him is his daughter Sarah, a 42-year-old nurse whose expression shows the complex mixture of love, grief, and strength that defines those who care for dying parents. She stays close to her father's side, ready to help, but respecting his fierce independence even as his body fails him. Jim is here because 3 weeks ago, he received a citation for expired vehicle registration. His truck's registration lapsed 4 months ago during his cancer treatments, and a routine traffic stop revealed the violation. The fine is $150 plus court costs, not a large amount, but Jim insisted on appearing in person despite his daughter's protests that she could handle it for him. As Jim approaches the defendant's stand, with Sarah helping him navigate with his walker, Judge Caprio immediately senses that this case is profoundly different. The sight of a clearly ill, elderly veteran in his courtroom, combined with the loving support of his daughter and the determination evident in Jim's bearing despite his obvious physical struggle, tells Judge Caprio that there's a story here that transcends expired registration. Colonel James Brennan, the court clerk announces, reading from the docket. Jim straightens his posture as much as his weakened body allows, a military bearing that even terminal cancer can't completely erase. His voice when he speaks carries the strength of someone who has faced death many times before and refuses to show weakness even now. Yes, Your Honor. Colonel James Brennan, United States Marine Corps.
Retired. Judge Caprio looks up from his paperwork and immediately understands that he's not just dealing with expired registration. He's looking at a dying man who has come to court for reasons that go much deeper than a traffic violation. Colonel Brennan, Judge Caprio begins gently, immediately using the military rank as a sign of respect. You're charged with operating a vehicle with expired registration, but before we discuss that, I need to ask, are you all right? Do you need to sit down? We can bring a chair for you. Jim shakes his head with military determination. Thank you, Your Honor, but I'd prefer to stand if I'm able. I've been sitting too much lately. Judge Caprio sets down his paperwork, his characteristic gesture when he senses someone is facing challenges far greater than the legal matter at hand. Colonel, can you tell me about your situation? Your daughter is here with you, and I can see you're using a walker. What's going on? That's when Jim reveals the truth that will transform this courtroom hearing into something far more profound. Jim takes a deep breath, steadying himself on his walker. Your Honor, I have stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I was diagnosed 6 months ago. The doctors have given me 2 to 4 weeks, maybe less.
Becomes absolutely silent. Even the court reporter stops typing to listen more carefully to a man who is addressing the court while literally dying. Sarah, Jim's daughter, reaches out to touch her father's arm, a gesture of support and love that speaks to the bond between them. Judge Caprio stands up from his bench and moves closer, his judicial formality giving way to human compassion. Colonel, I'm deeply sorry to hear that. Can you tell me why you insisted on coming to court today? Your daughter could have handled this matter for you. Jim looks at Sarah with profound love, then back at Judge Caprio with eyes that have seen too much war and are now facing the final battle. Your Honor, I'm here today because I have a last request, and I needed to make it in person in a court of law, so there's no question about my intentions. Judge Caprio's eyes begin to fill with tears as he realizes they are about to witness something extraordinary. Colonel, what is your last request? Jim's voice becomes steadier, as if the act of fulfilling his final mission gives him strength that medical treatment cannot provide. Your Honor, I'm here to confess to a crime I committed 47 years ago, and to ask this court to help me make it
right before I die. The emotional weight of this revelation hits everyone in the courtroom like a physical force. This dying veteran has used what might be one of his last days capable of walking to come to court, not to fight a charge, but to confess to a decades-old crime. Your Honor, in 1978, 3 years after I returned from Vietnam, I stole $600 from a small grocery store in Federal Hill. The owner was an elderly Italian man named Angelo Rousey. I was struggling with what we now call PTSD. I was drinking too much. I couldn't hold a job. And I made a terrible choice. Sarah looks at her father in shock. Clearly, this is the first time she's hearing about this ancient crime. I took the money and I disappeared. I eventually got help, got sober, built a good life, raised a beautiful family, but I never forgot Mr. Rousey's face when he discovered what I'd done. I never forgot that I betrayed the very people I'd sworn to protect when I put on the uniform. And guys, if this story isn't already breaking your heart, if you're not already understanding the incredible courage it takes for a dying man to confess to a crime from nearly 50 years ago, please hit that
like button. What Colonel Brennan tells Judge Caprio next about his final mission will restore your faith and the power of honor to outlive us all. Judge Caprio has to turn away for a moment to compose himself. In 35 years on the bench, he's heard thousands of confessions, but he's never heard anything like this. A dying veteran using his final weeks to seek redemption for a crime committed during the darkest period of his life. Colonel Brennan, why are you telling me this now? Jim's eyes fill with tears, but his voice remains steady with military discipline.
Your Honor, I'm dying in a few weeks, maybe less. I'll stand before a higher authority than this court. I can't meet my Creator. I can't face the men I served with who didn't make it home. I can't leave this world knowing that I never made amends for betraying the honor of the uniform I wore. Sarah is crying now, holding her father's arm as he reveals the burden he's carried for nearly 5 decades. Your Honor, I've spent 6 months trying to find Mr. Rossi or his family. The store is long gone. The neighborhood has changed completely. I've searched records, contacted historical societies, hired a private investigator. I found out that Angelo Rossi died in 1992, but
I can't find his family, his descendants. Anyone who can accept my apology and the restitution I need to pay. Jim reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out an envelope. His hands shake, not just from illness, but from emotion as he holds it toward Judge Caprio. Your Honor, this envelope contains $6,000, the original $600 adjusted for inflation and interest over 47 years. I'm asking this court to help me find the Rossi family so I can make this right before I die. This is my last request, my final mission, the last act of service I can perform before I leave this world. Judge Caprio takes the envelope with reverent care, understanding that he's holding not just money, but a dying man's attempt to achieve peace before death. Colonel Brennan, you're telling me that with weeks to live, you've come to court to confess to a crime, seek out the victim's family, and pay restitution that you've calculated with interest over nearly 5 decades. Yes, Your Honor. A Marine is always a Marine. We leave no one behind. We complete our missions and we take responsibility for our actions. I failed to live up to those values in 1978. I won't fail again, even if it's the last thing I do. Will create one of the most memorable moments in courtroom history and prove that sometimes justice isn't about punishment. It's about helping dying heroes complete their final mission. Judge Caprio looks out at the courtroom, then back at Colonel Brennan and Sarah. Colonel, I want everyone in this courtroom to understand what they're witnessing. You're not here because you're afraid of legal consequences. You're here because even facing death, your sense of honor demands that you make amends for a mistake you made during the darkest period of your life. The judge's voice grows stronger, more emotional. You served this country in Vietnam. You came home to a nation that didn't welcome you, struggled with wounds we didn't yet know how to treat, and made a mistake during that struggle. Then you spent 47 years building a good life, raising a family, and carrying the weight of that one terrible choice. Judge Caprio turns to address the entire courtroom. Ladies and gentlemen, you're looking at what honor looks like in its final hours. This man could spend his remaining days with his family, seeking comfort, making peace with his mortality. Instead, he's here using energy he can barely afford to spend to complete a mission of redemption that only his conscience demands. Shock everyone and ensure that Colonel Brennan's final mission is completed. Colonel Brennan, not only am I dismissing the vehicle registration charge completely, but I'm making this court's resources available to help you complete your mission. I'm directing court administration to contact the Italian-American Historical Society, the Federal Hill Neighborhood Association, and the Providence Public Records Office to locate the Rossi family. Jim's eyes widened with gratitude and hope that he's afraid to feel. Furthermore, Colonel, I'm establishing this court as the trustee for your restitution fund. If we find the Rossi family, we'll ensure they receive your payment and understand the extraordinary act of honor you've performed.
If we cannot find them, we'll donate the funds to Veteran Services in the Rossi family name, ensuring that your act of conscience helps other veterans facing the same struggles you faced in 1978. The courtroom erupts in applause, but Judge Caprio isn't finished. Colonel Brennan, you mentioned that you'll soon face a higher authority than this court. I want you to know that when you stand before that authority, you'll stand as a man who never stopped serving, never stopped taking responsibility, and never let illness or death prevent you from completing your mission. Sarah is sobbing now, overwhelmed by the recognition of her father's character and the compassion being shown to him in his final days. Judge Caprio kneels down to Colonel Brennan's level, speaking with the respect one warrior shows another. Colonel, you said a Marine never leaves anyone behind. Today, this court promises that we won't leave your mission incomplete. We'll find the Rossi family, or we'll honor them in a way that reflects your sacrifice and service. As Judge Caprio stands up, addressing the entire courtroom, his voice carries the weight of profound respect and absolute conviction. Colonel Brennan has shown us today what it means to live with honor even when death is near, to take responsibility even when no one is demanding it, and to serve others until the very end. This is heroism in its purest form. What happened after this video was posted online restored faith in humanity and proved that communities mobilize instantly when they witness true honor and courage. Within 4 hours of the video being shared, 3 different people claiming to be Rossi family members had contacted the court. Within 8 hours, genealogical researchers had confirmed that Angelo Rossi's grandson, Michael Rossi, was living in Boston and working as a teacher. Within 12 hours, Michael Rossi was on his way to Providence to meet the man who had stolen from his grandfather 47 years ago. 2 days later,
In a private meeting arranged by Judge Caprio's office, Colonel James Brennan met Michael Rossi. Sarah was with her father, providing support as he completed his final mission. "Mr. Rossi," Jim said, his voice weak but clear, "I'm the man who stole from your grandfather in 1978. I've come to apologize and to pay restitution for the harm I caused your family." Michael Rossi, a 48-year-old high school history teacher, looked at the dying veteran with tears in his eyes. "Colonel Brennan, my grandfather told me about that robbery before he died. He said the man who did it looked haunted, looked like he'd seen too much, and couldn't find his way back. He always hoped that man found peace." Jim handed Michael the envelope containing $6,000. "I found peace eventually. I built a good life. But I never forgot what I took from your grandfather. And I couldn't die without making it right." Michael opened the envelope, looked at the carefully calculated restitution, and made a decision that would honor both men's legacies. "Colonel Brennan, I accept your apology on behalf of my grandfather, but I can't accept this money for myself. My grandfather would want this money to help other veterans who are struggling the way you were struggling in 19...
Support fund in both our grandfathers' names. Jim's eyes filled with tears, not from sadness, but from the relief of a mission completed and a burden lifted. 1 week later, Colonel James Brennan passed away peacefully at home. Surrounded by his family, his daughter Sarah reported that his final words were, "Mission complete. I can face them now." At Jim's funeral, Michael Rossi delivered a eulogy about the power of redemption, the courage of confession, and the honor of a man who never stopped being a Marine, even as death approached. Judge Caprio attended, standing with hundreds of veterans who had come to honor a brother who had shown them what it means to serve until the very end. The Angelo Rossi Veteran Support Fund, established with Colonel Brennan's restitution payment, has since helped over 50 veterans struggling with PTSD, addiction, and the challenges of returning to civilian life. Every recipient receives a letter explaining that they're being helped because one dying veteran refused to take his mistake to the grave. And guys, I want to ask you something that I know both Judge Caprio and Colonel Brennan would want me to ask. In the comments below, tell us about the person who taught you what honor truly means. The one who showed you that responsibility isn't about
Perfection. It's about owning the truth, even when it costs everything. Because Colonel James Brennan's story reminds us that real honor doesn't expire. It isn't pinned on a uniform or carved on a gravestone. It lives in the choices we make when no one is watching. True courage isn't just found on the battlefield. It's found in the quiet act of saying, "I was wrong," in asking for forgiveness when pride would rather stay silent, and in fighting to make things right, even when time is running out. If this story touched your heart, if Colonel Brennan's final act of redemption moved you, then share this video with every veteran, every family, and every soul who believes that integrity outlives us all. Because heroes aren't remembered for being flawless, they're remembered for never surrendering their humanity. And standing beside that legacy was Judge Frank Caprio, a man who didn't just interpret the law, he humanized it, who saw beyond mistakes, beyond rank, beyond uniform, and recognized the soldier still fighting for redemption inside an aging heart. Judge Caprio reminded us that justice without compassion is hollow, and compassion without accountability is weakness. He showed us that the greatest judges don't just close cases, they open hearts, heal wounds, and restore dignity where it's almost gone. So to Judge Frank Caprio, may your example continue to guide future generations of judges, officers, and ordinary people to choose empathy over ego, truth over pride, and forgiveness over fury. Because when the gavel falls in your courtroom, it doesn't end a story, it redeems one. This is Judge Stories, where every verdict isn't just about guilt or innocence, it's about honor, humanity, and hope.